Hi guys, and welcome to the Stephen King Sematary Club. Hi guys, Moochie is dead. Christine has killed him, so now his death is being investigated. And the police officer assigned to the case is called Junkins. And he goes to Darnell's garage after talking to Arnie's parents. He talks to Arnie for a while, and he gets the sense that Arnie knows more than he's letting on. And he also feels like Arnie is not completely lost. He seems to Junkins like someone who has gotten himself involved in something and doesn't know how to get out of it. So he gets grilled, and then Arnie starts losing patience, and he starts kind of channeling LeBay, and Christine is kind of like an anchor for him and keeps him focused on the questions at hand, keeps him not completely angry, but standing up for himself. Lee and Arnie go shopping like they were originally going to do when they found Christine damaged, and they have a great day. It's kind of a revitalization of their relationship, and on the way home, it's snowy, it's crappy, they're driving along, and a hitchhiker is standing by the side of the road, and Lee wants to pick him up. So they pick him up. They also had dinner plans, so they were going to grab a quick bite of fast food, and Cricket. They get their food, they're driving home, and all of a sudden, Lee starts choking to death. Arnie is pretty much in shock and not of any help. The hitchhiker actually saves Lee's life. He does the Heimlich maneuver on her and saves her while Lee was choking to death. It's a very disturbing description of what it feels like to choke. And when she is in the kind of end stages of the choking and almost dead, she sees Christine's dashboard turn into eyes, and she knows that Christine is the reason she is choking. Christine wants her dead. So as soon as she has been saved, dropped off at home, she does not want to get in that car ever again. And she tells Arnie that, you need to sell this car, you need to get rid of it, or I can't be with you. At the very least, I'm never stepping foot in that car again. It wants to kill me. And Arnie is angered by it, and I think underneath he also kind of suspects something. Arnie is out of town in some chess club tournament, and Christine lets herself out of the garage and hunts down Buddy Repperton and two guys who are in the car with him. One of them was a participant in her mutilation. The other one is just someone who started hanging around them. And there's a very epic chase scene through the snow, hairpin turns, icy road conditions. Buddy is, really trying to outrun Christine, and he's maneuvering, and she anticipates everything. She's able to keep up. It's very, very scary. And it ends in a parking lot. Christine starts hitting them, and they all end up dying. At one point, LeBay's corpse materializes before Buddy dies, and Christine kind of circles him like a wolf. She just, like some sort of wild animal, she's just stalking him, trying to get at him. She keeps ramming into the snow because he's standing on a snowbank, and she's trying to knock him off so that she can get him. So she is very much a wild animal, and a very scary one, She lets herself back into the garage, and Darnell happens to be there. So Will is sitting at his desk, and he sees Christine come in with no one driving her. He goes over to her, and she has turned herself off. She's just sitting there, cooling down. He tries to get into the car to kind of look around inside, and she starts, which scares the hell out of him, and he stumbles and runs away. So now he knows things. He has already started worrying about Arnie and Christine. He realizes that he's never seen Arnie do much on this car. He's done a little bit here and there. Darnell also realizes that Arnie's way of repairing Christine and or thinking about things is to go out into the back lot and just circle, just like drive amongst the junked out cars. And that is part of Christine's process. Arnie goes out there and her odometer runs backwards. So he goes out there and drives her around and around and around, and that fixes her. She returns to the point before she was damaged. So news makes it around of Buddy's death and the 2 kids who are with him. Arnie is upset by it. Quote, "He couldn't quite lose the feeling that he was somehow involved." Page 323. So Arnie gets in his car, he cruises around, and he feels better. So Christine is kind of like a drug for him. She's also kind of a soothing erasure of memory. She's just something that he can get into, exist on autopilot, probably like zoning out and watching your favorite television show. You know, it's comforting, it's something you don't have to think about very carefully. It all feels very safe, and Arnie definitely feels that when he is inside Christine. It also kind of reminds me of how the Overlook Hotel uses Danny as a battery to kind of power things. So Christine needs Arnie, and she kind of siphons stuff off of him. And she also has this glamour, so she projects pleasant, beautiful things for him, and that keeps him placid and compliant. Now, that has started to slip because Arnie parks her to go in and grab a pizza. He forgot his keys. He goes in to get the keys, and he's hit by that stench that everyone is complaining about. Everyone says there's this rotten smell, and Lee was very insistent that there is this decaying, gross smell that comes from Christine, and she doesn't like it, and she knows that Arnie must smell it, and she doesn't know why he won't admit it. It's only now that he's starting to admit to himself that there is a weird smell. It kind of wasn't there before because Christine was hiding it from him, but he surprised Christine, you know? And so now he's really concerned. He realizes that he's become this much, much different person. He's very hard, he's very uncaring, and he is just angry all the time, like LeBay. And he calls home to talk to his parents and tell them that he's, coming home, and his dad answers the phone, and he's just very emotionless, very, "No, it's you, Arnie, I don't really care," kind of thing, And Arnie's father says, quote, "You had some justification for your behavior at first, perhaps, but in the last month or so you've turned into someone I don't understand at all, and something is going on that I understand even less." Page 327. So Arnie is kind of taken aback. He's also affronted. He doesn't like being called out on this, and things are starting to fall into place. He's also had this nagging feeling of, something happened to him that has made him wear a back brace, but he won't allow himself to remember it. As he's driving home, he sees the corpse of LeBay sitting in the seat beside him, accompanied by that disgusting smell. And he's starting to put 2 and 2 together. He's starting to realize that Christine is not all that she seems to be, and he seems to be a pawn in her endgame. We also find out how he hurt his back, why he's in the back brace. When Christine was damaged pretty much beyond repair, he pushed her. He got her towed to Darnell's garage, and he pushed her on her flat tires around the lot until her tires healed enough for him to get in and drive her. And then he just cruised and cruised and cruised and drove her until she was better. Quote, "He simply pushed her until she was right enough to run, and then he had driven her, cruising between the rows until the odometer ran back past what Repperton and his friends had done. And then Christine was okay." Page 335. So he hurt his back because he was pushing a car on flat tires. And he hadn't allowed himself to remember that. So things are getting very, very dicey, especially because now Christine has murdered several people. Junkins reappears and questions Arnie again, because now that there's another set of accidents where the people who were responsible for ruining his car, they're the ones who are the victims. It's all very suspicious. He tells Arnie that the paint that was embedded in Moochie's skin is the same color as Christine. Which doesn't mean it was definitely Christine, because other cars had that color, but it is a little suspicious. So Arnie, once again, is not having it. He doesn't want to comply. He's sticking with his story that, and it's true, he was out of town. He didn't do anything. It is Christine who's doing it. He has nothing to do with it. Junkins leaves, and then he decides to go ahead and go after Will Darnell, who is caught up in a whole bunch of illegal trafficking and tax evasion-y type stuff, and they will also net Arnie in the process. So Junkins thinks that's the best way to proceed. They decide to put a sting on Darnell's garage, Darnell's tax attorney, and when Arnie makes what was supposed to be one of his last runs for Darnell across state lines, they get him with illegal cigarettes. So Arnie is arrested. He gets released on bail, and he decides he needs to be out of town. Like, it's important to him to be out of town on Christmas Eve. He doesn't know exactly why, he just knows to do that. So he talks his parents into going to a relative's house for Christmas Eve, so the three of them are out of town, built-in alibi. Christine heads out of Darnell's garage on her own, and she attacks the last guy who was involved in her beating. There was one other guy, the guy who let the group of boys into the parking lot, but he has already left town and he didn't really participate. So this last one, Don Vandenberg, he is part of Buddy's crew, and Christine stalks him and runs him down. Then she moves on to Will Darnell. She goes to his house. So there's this big snowstorm. She manages to make her way up to his house, and she starts ramming the snowbanks to get into his driveway. She gets into his driveway, and he sees it, and he decides to call Arnie. And she starts ramming her way into his house. She drives in through his picture window, gets inside his house, and ends up killing him. And she repairs herself on the way back to Darnell's garage. And that is the end of part 2, and I think that's where we'll stop today.